Here I come.
I sense something elusive.
Stay a while and listen. Well met. You are not prepared. This better be good.
Existence is mysterious.
Loud and clear. Hello there.
Greetings, traveler, and welcome to the Blue Recluse.
Welcome to episode 199 of the Blue Recluse. My name is Martin Larsen, and you're listening to the podcast about everything Blizzard and the podcast called The Blizzard Umbrella. Also, the podcast about everything Blizzard, I guess.
What a ripoff.
So obviously with us today we have Dusty. We're trying something new, a new order. Dusty, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Marty. Absolutely wonderful. I just realized that I should never watch the stream while we were recording because I am behind over here, and over on this monitor I am like, the conversation is live. So I'm going to go ahead and rearrange while you introduce everyone else, but I'm so excited to be here today. Can't wait for this conversation.
And from the Blue Recluse we have Tom as well. Tom is here. How are you doing?
Hello. Very excited to talk about some Horde and some Alliance stuff. It's been a needless to say, a heated week. Maybe that's an understatement in the World of Warcraft community. So maybe we can douse some of those flames.
And we have Mr. Sylvanas himself. How are you doing, Ryan?
Tom. Good.
I broke Ryan already.
Tom.
I thought it was going to take at least half an hour.
Oh man, there's so many spoilers inside of Tom's puns.
I was just waiting for the first lit comment from one of you guys.
Yeah, this podcast is already on fire. Michael, how you doing?
I didn't even get to answer.
I'm
It's
here.
fine. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm here. I guess that's as good as we can get.
I don't think we want to waste too much time in anything. I think we want to just jump straight into it, right? Because we have quite a bit we can talk about. I mean, the main point we're going to talk about is the book Before the Storm, but we will then afterwards also go into the Warbringers and the cinematic and the in-game quests and everything that happened lore-wise the past few weeks as well. So I will also say this is going to be spoiler territory. If you have not read the book, then we're going to spoil it. So it's continue listening if you want, but you've been warned. Also, if you haven't played the in-game quest, if you haven't watched the cinematics, I don't understand how you can't have by now, but we're going to spoil those as well. So now you have been warned. But Before the Storm, a book primarily shown from two perspectives, Anduin and Sylvanas. And Tom, you were the one that got the book the latest, so let's start with you. What did you feel about it? You have everything fresh in memory.
Yeah, I actually went the audiobook route with this as well. And I just want to say that I don't have the guy's name off my hand who did the book, but his voice acting and how he brought that whole story to life was incredible. I actually thought I was kind of blown away.
I think it's cool that he actually sounds like Anduin.
Yeah, he does. He sounds like Anduin. His Velen was really good. There was some dodgy ones. I think the dwarfs were a little bit off the Scottish accent, but
it is Anduin's voiceover, dude. By the way.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. that's why he sounds just like Anduin. There we go. That's one mystery we've solved today. It might be the only mystery we solved today, but at least we got one. But yeah, I think overall I really enjoyed the book. Me and my girlfriend, who's actually in the chat right now, Falamoya Kraba, we were on a road trip the last couple of days, so we were listening to this as we went around Ireland, and it was a lot of fun. We couldn't kind of wait to get back into it, and the more we listened to it, the more excited we were for Battle for Azeroth. And yeah, also just to kind of kick this off, I feel like the connective tissue from the book, which has bled into the game, and one of the big complaints we've had between expansions is a lot of story happening outside the game and then kind of not really being reflected in game. I feel like there was certain cutscenes in game with, Anduin giving a speech at Lion's Rest and Sylvanas kind of giving a speech, kind of round table with the other leaders of the Horde, and they've they've almost like took those in the book and they've expanded on them in the book in more detail, but there's also that reflection in game, which I feel like has been very important to generate consistency with the transition of the story between expansions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's right. I think they've done a better job at making everything connected a little bit more, and the important stuff to actually be in game. Not all of it though. I still think they have some things to learn, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. But yeah, Dusty, how do you feel overall about the book so far?
So that's one of the things that Blizzard has always done well, right? Is the outside of game stuff. Is that, especially the past few years, they've done such a great job of, with the books and the comics and the cinematics and whatever. They've done such a really good job. I think that the fun of this conversation today is going to be the difference of opinions on characters and storylines and things like that. But I think that, number one, I think we all can agree that the book was really good. Whether or not, you want to say it was fantastic or the best one, I'm not going to go there, because I'm like Ryan, I'm reading through some of the older ones right now. And then number two, regardless of what we say today, everyone has to understand these are fictional characters, and the people who write these stories are real people. And it's just one of those things. The past week's kind of been frustrating for me, because I'm as passionate and as bought into this lore and this canon as anyone else, but it doesn't give me the right, or anyone else the right, to go after the people who are creating this fantasy that we all love. As real as it may seem to all of us, it's one of those things to where it's still just fiction, and it's still just pixels on a screen. It's still just stuff made up. But again, this week has showed me that people are bought in. Like, people are so bought in to what WoW is, to that lore, to that story. And I'm just excited I've been dying to talk to somebody. I messaged, I think Marty and Ryan the other day when I saw the cinematic, or I finished the quest line. I just want to talk to somebody about it who can bounce ideas off each other and talk about the different characters and whatnot. But I love the book, and I loved everything, so far that they've led up to. I've had some situations where I'm like, I don't know if that's the route that I would have gone, but definitely liked the book and everything up to this point.
Yeah. I totally have to completely agree that I've been waiting. I've been dying to do this episode since we agreed on doing it. And after I read the book and discovering that Tom hadn't read it yet, and I was like, oh, come on, I need to talk to someone about this. And also just want to just thumbs up for saying that there's people out there who are developers, who are writers, who have they are as passionate about this as we are, and they have crafted a story for us, and we still don't have the full story. So going after them right now, and going after them at all, don't be dicks. That's not how it works, right? So don't do that, please. Michael, what did you think about the book?
I really enjoyed it. It's the first book that I've actually listened to all the way through as an audiobook, and I think it's a testament not only to the voice actor that went ahead and did it, but also to the writing in general, that I was able to listen to it and still be invested in it just as if I was reading a book. That's been a challenge for me with audiobooks. It's just kind of missing that turn the page feel, just being alone with that world. And with the audiobook, I actually felt like I was right there. I don't know about anybody else, but the love story within it was one of my favorite parts of it. I absolutely love that idea, and unfortunately, we're not going to get there quite yet, but there was a sad moment there, and I was just devastated. I had to pause it for a little bit. I'm still hoping that we haven't seen the end of it. Maybe we just maybe they went underground or something, but I really enjoyed it overall. I think it definitely leads into the expansion, and you can start to see more things make sense if you've read the book, and you're able to justify certain actions based on characters if you've read the book, and be like, well, this person did that in the book, so it's pretty obvious that they don't care about doing this over here right now.
Yeah. Lastly, Ryan, you really dislike this book, right? Isn't that? Correct.
Quite the opposite, actually. I really enjoy. There hasn't been a single piece of writing that Christy Golden has done that I've read that I've disliked so far. I think she does a fantastic job. My only points of criticism would be sometimes I feel like she could write up to the audience a little bit more. Sometimes I feel like she gravitates more towards like a children's style of writing. It can be. I could use a little bit more detail and stuff like that. In comparison to Richard Knack, I think is one of the other writers for the Blizzard canon. But again, I really enjoy her stories. I do like the fact that she progresses the story when she writes fairly quickly. You don't get to points where you feel like you're being overly bombarded with detail and the story becomes stagnant. I don't feel like that ever happens with her writing, so I definitely enjoy that. The other thing I wanted to add to kind of take what Dusty started here a little bit further is I've said this on other shows, I've said this in other discussions, I compare it to the likeness of Star Wars. I'm a fan of Jar Jar Binks, and I'm a fan of Jar Jar Binks for one reason. That was someone else's story to tell, right? And one of the things that drives me the most insane is when I go into a movie and you have it's one thing if you shorten a story to make it fit inside of a movie, but if you change the story, that's very irritating to me because it's not your story to tell. That is someone else's story to tell. We as the players, while yes, we enjoy and we pay our money monthly to play, this is not our story to tell. This is the Blizzard team's story to tell, and whoever they choose to be the writer at any point in time.
I disagree. Whenever I walked into my order hall, they said, "Welcome back, champion. I am the champion. It's my story." They gave me Ashbringer. It's my story.
Jar Jar Binks, not my war chief.
Listen, if Jar Jar Binks becomes anybody's war chief, I may change my tune. I'm just going to throw that disclaimer out there right now.
He's a Sith Lord.
But no, it's their story to tell. You're not supposed to like every character. You're not supposed to like everything that happens. That's the part of this universe that creates the enjoyment of this game long term. You need that polarization and diversity within the story to set up for growth down the road. Like, characters are not going to be here forever. Characters are not always going to make decisions that we agree with, and at no point in time is anything that happens a grounds for justification to go after a person like Christy Golden, like people have. And like Marty said, don't be a dick. Like Dusty said, please don't do it. Whatever iteration of that sentiment you want to say, it still holds true. Like, it's one thing if you ask him questions, it's one thing if you criticize, but don't be rude and don't go after him. It's just not. It's uncalled for.
I think the people listening to this show and the majority of people understand that. And like in most communities, it's always going to be those people that are shouting the loudest, that has the attention on them. But I think ultimately the community, some people aren't maybe happy with the direction of certain aspects of the story, but a lot of people are willing to say, well, this is only page 1, and let's see exactly how this pans out. And for me, I actually don't feel like Sylvanas is the big aspect. I don't think she's too far off the path that we've kind of seen her progress through over the years, and she's obviously taken that to a next level. But the comparisons of kind of Garrosh, again, I feel it's a lot different from that. Garrosh was, he was really erratic. I don't think he was as cunning. He was more just, wave an axe and, tear down everyone. It's mainly for him, it was about the orcs. And I feel like Sylvanas, while she has this bias for her Forsaken, and although the book the Before the Storm may actually conflict that statement, ultimately, she's looking out for people, and her people are part of the Horde, and she wants the Horde to be successful. And while certain actions are questionable, I can still see a reason behind that. Maybe not one I would ever agree with, of course, but I can still see maybe how her mind is working right now. And she is obviously, she is straying from the path drastically, but I can still generate some reasons why.
Remember when Dusty said we're not all going to agree? Here it is, the first main one, okay? Because I don't think that Sylvanas has the overall for everybody in mind. I think she has an overall picture for one in mind, and within that idea for the one, other people may benefit, or she's able to hide her intentions through that, just like most single leaders are, as in, I want to be this, so I'm going to grab a bunch of people that will support this by creating this extra layer of I'm doing it for the betterment of these people. But in the sidelines, I'm looking out for number one. That's what she's doing, Tom. And if you don't agree with me, then get off the podcast. No.
I actually agree with that. I feel like she's not afraid to use like parts of the Horde to benefit her. Well, yeah, anybody, but specifically like the Horde. Like she obviously has the book really highlights an underlying disgust for the goblins, and you know the whole faction of the Horde. It's made up of such disjointed members that everyone has kind of different views. You know, there's really a dramatic difference between like a Forsaken and a Tauren, and I think kind of right now as well with how. Like we had Garrosh and then we have Vol'jin, and I feel like because in game and really outside the game we didn't really see too much of Vol'jin, and the fact now that we've transitioned to Sylvanas has also caused this kind of, oh well, you know, it's just the same thing happening again. And I feel like perhaps the poor writing has come from the fact that Blizzard didn't really flesh out Vol'jin more as a war chief. So because it feels like we've just kind of transitioned from Garrosh to Sylvanas being, you know, these bad war chiefs, whereas Vol'jin was in the middle. He stabilized the Horde, but we never really got to experience that, especially in game. And I feel like
I think the in-game issue with Vol'jin is that it doesn't. There was like a short quest line event sort of thing, and that's it. But if you actually read the books and outside those, they build up this huge arc for him that started in Pandaria, before Pandaria even, and it's gone all the way up to when he actually became war chief. But in game, we didn't really see too much of it. We only saw the rebellion, and that's about it. And I think probably the majority of people, they only see that. They have not read those extra books and short stories and whatever because of Vol'jin. And I think it was so sad to see, because Vol'jin, they built him up and it was an amazing character. It was an amazing development to see, and then for him to just be like, oh, dead by Game of Thrones, out of here. It was a little bit sad to me, to be honest, because he's a cool character. And
I would have to tend to agree with you, Marty, because I think one of the problems is everybody likes to get their story in different ways, right? Blizzard offers a multitude of options: books, animated shorts, in-game scenarios, quests, whatever, right? And so I think when you have pivotal points in a story that happen outside of game, not everybody's gonna go to that source to get that piece of the story. So I think in some fashion, Blizzard, if they were ever to listen to my advice, would be to always provide a way to cover the gaps in the story that may be covered elsewhere, even if it is in a more condensed bullet point way, so that everybody can get all the story without having to go to all this a multitude of sources to get their story from.
So the Garrosh 2.0 stuff, I think, is kind of underserving. I think that it's not giving the Sylvanas stuff enough credit, because I think that yes, their kind of paths, the journeys may be similar in that yes, they're both kind of horrible war chiefs. They've both done horrible things, but you got to kind of look at motivation, right? Like the motivation of these two characters. Like, what's the motivation? I think that if they kept Vol'jin as the war chief of the Horde, honestly, I think Sylvanas would have done the same thing she's doing right now. I think that honestly, if we go back and look at the storyline, I don't know how much she realistically wanted the throne of war chief and what she has now. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. I think she didn't. They showed that she did not. And so with that being said, for her, you know, you watch that the animatic or whatever they're calling it of Teldrassil of it burning, and I, as much as anybody, I hated that. I love that tree, man. I love that tree. But when you watch that and they show the flashback of when she's you know showing that night elf kind of why, like she's asking why, and you see the pain and you see the agony and you seen the distress of kind of what's going on. I think what's ticking people off is that this whole time we thought that she was going for the purpose of burning the tree, which now we know that that's not the case. She was going to take over Darnassus, and then when she gets there, she gets ticked off at what this night elf says. She turns the night elf face, which was the worst part of that whole cinematic. And I told Ryan that she turns the night elf's face, so she has to watch it. And then, so she goes in there and she just gets mad and she burns the tree. That's kind of the writing that I think people are upset about. But if you're not interested in this storyline, like, what is wrong with you? Like, this is one of, I do not remember a time in WoW's history in the past 5 years where people have been this bent out of shape over something that's going on with WoW lore. It's normally gameplay or cooldowns or this or that. Go ahead, Marty.
No, I totally agree with you, and I think that was a horrible scene, and even seeing it again in like in a proper CGI in the Saurfang one was like, oh my god, this is horrible. But one thing that I don't get though is how, because Sylvanas is this, to me at least, she's this cool-headed. She has everything planned out. She's she's scheming. She knows everything that's going to happen before it happens. And I mean, that's just the character to me. And for her to get ticked off by such a small comment is a little bit weird to me, especially when coming from a nobody like this, because this Ranger General is a character that was just created for this. We've never seen her before. We don't know if that's history. We don't know anything about her. And just to come in and just say 2 small lines and then Sylvanas goes crazy, I don't get that, to be honest. And I think this is where Michael has something to say.
I'm gonna disagree with most of the community when I say this, but I think that burning the tree was her intent from the beginning. I don't think that what the elf said was the thing that triggered it, and here's why I say this. In game, when you go through the scenario, you actually see like Saurfang go down, or not Saurfang, sorry, Malfurion go down, and then they're making their way to the tree to begin with. So she was heading that way, and for what reason? If her reason was to simply get rid of Malfurion, then that could have been accomplished right then and there. Her objective was to destroy Hope, and then I think that because immortality was taken from her, she was going to take immortality away from others.
Her objective was to take over the tree, to take over the port, so the Alliance couldn't ship Azerite.
So again, Marty.
So that was her intent. That was why they went to the tree, and that's when they go to the tree. It's to occupy it.
I think maybe that was the reason that she gave people, but I think that her intent from the beginning was to destroy it.
See, Michael, I think you're on the right track.
I don't think the cinematic shows that, because in the cinematic you actually see, because sorry, I just have to say I've watched the cinematic so many times, like 20 plus times, and I've seen reaction videos with it, so I know it by heart by now. And when you see her reaction, you see how she looks at the tree, she looks back at the elf. It's like it feels to me like that decision is in the moment. It's not something that was planned, pre-planned.
Well, I think that when she says burn it, and I'm just going to say this, and I know Ryan, you want to say something real quick, but when she says burn it, you see the shocked of Nathanos and Saurfang in the background. You see they're not doing it immediately because they were not already setting up and planning for this. When she says that, when she says, she has to yell at them again, burn it down, it's kind of shocking to them, because in their mind, if she did have this planned out, maybe she did, but she didn't let anyone else know about it.
So they just brought the burning equipment just in case?
So here's a couple of things you have to know. Bringing it back to the book. When we get to the final scene of the book, and there is the realization that the entire time that little gathering of undead and humans was set up, Anduin realized that Sylvanas the whole entire time used that opportunity to dispose of the council because they were threatening her position of power. Everything she does has another purpose. It's just disguised at face value for what it is, and then there's another purpose behind it. And I think, like Chad has said, she's incredibly calculating. Michael, I think you're right. She did go to burn the tree. What Saurfang and Nathanos didn't realize was they thought that she was going to evacuate and not kill innocent people. That's what they didn't like. And Saurfang reflects that many times, both in scenarios and in that moment, because he talks about this is dishonorable. This is not honorable, right? And I think She never wanted the position of war chief, but like everything else, it's a means to an end. It's a tool, and she needs the horde. And right now that she has the power, she can control how she uses it. Whereas prior to this point, she had to be a bit more manipulative and play chess by manipulating events or people so that she can steer the horde without being the one in power. Because she has an end goal and it has nothing to do with the horde.
I think, like with regards to this whole snap judgment, I think it was a decision almost cemented in that moment. But I actually disagree when it's classed as like a hot-headed decision. Yeah, she like said burn it, but to me, I still think she did it in her cold, calculated way. And the fact that she turns that night elf's head to look at it, like that's cold and calculated. If she was just going crazy, like burn it down, like I feel like that wouldn't have happened. Like she wouldn't have turned a night elf's head to witness that. And even when she like repeats burn it, like I don't think she's like absolutely appearing like crazy, like off the rails. Like I feel like she's just made a calculation in her head. Like she's heard what that general said, and I agree with what someone's saying in the chat. Like she's realized that now, like capturing the Teldrassil, that's not going to be enough to break the alliance. This burning this tree down, that is going to mess the alliance up. That's going to really throw this spanner in the works. And while I feel like from a war perspective, like a declaration of war right there, I think that's a bad play on her part. I still get why in her head she has done that.
But I think she sort of also accomplished the opposite of what she actually because she was trying to kill hope for the alliance, right? And obviously this as Southang said, this will bring all of them together. This will bring all of them towards us. This will not kill hope, but what it actually does do is it actually kills Southang's hope. He all of a sudden realizes now that this horde is not the horde that he used to know and that he used to be a part of, and that's why he wants to go out in a glory warrior's death sort of way in the cinematic before he's being brought back into line by Sappy Boy.
It's interesting how this stuff has been laid out to us, right? Because we got the animatic for Sylvanas, and then we got just randomly on a Thursday night they dropped the Sourfang cinematic, which by the way, that's one of the best things I've ever seen Blizzard do. It's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. But when I was watching that,
that audio.
The sound was so good. The thing is that when I was watching that, I realized, I was like, they broke his hope. But then in a matter of minutes, when he was having this dialogue, this interaction with this troll, which by the way, aside from Safi and Gally, the two characters that I love most from the book, Zappy Boy is again, I can't wait. I hope they don't kill him off immediately. That would be really sad. But anyways, it's funny. He kind of gave him the hope. He kind of brought a little bit of his spirits back in the conversation, because he was going to walk out there with him and he was going to go to his death with him, and all of a sudden they had this conversation, and he pushes him down on the ground, and he looks back and he kind of sees the horde, and he realizes the horde that he wants to fight for. It's not one person. It's the collective. It's what makes him honorable. It's there's such things as war crimes, and there's a book titled after it, and it's one of those things to where he may disagree with Sylvanas, but at the end of the day, he's fighting for a greater good, for a larger group.
And I also think that he realized at that point that the horde is not made out of like 100% Sylvanas. Yes. There is actually some proper honor in the horde as well.
Yes.
And you mentioned it. I want to bring it back to the book, and maybe you guys know this more than I do, but has there been things like in game or in previous books about a gnome and a goblin kind of being a thing? Or was this just like a Before the Storm type deal?
I believe there was a Hearthstone expansion called Goblins and Gnomes.
Now we know why it was the first breakup.
My question is, what was the point of those two characters in the book? Because if I have to look at it, then
to capture my heart.
But it felt so pointless. They didn't really go anywhere except that they got back together. Yeah, I don't, and that's sort of like where I'm like, why if they don't finish the story, why bring it into a book? Because then the book is not finished, right? So I don't know. It felt pointless to me. Sorry, Michael. It felt pointless to
Twitch
me
chat
to have
wants to know why you don't have a heart, Marty.
it's not that I. It's not that I don't like the characters or anything. It just felt pointless. It felt like it didn't move the story anywhere. The old story.
I disagree.
Michael.
I disagree. I think that it added to the story in game. Their whole point of it is the Azurite and how they're manipulating it to be used for equipment, materials, and things like that. So it's adding, how did Azurite suddenly become this thing that we can put into gear and socketable items and things like that? And the love story portion of it was simply a way to progress that story in a way that's not as simple as, hey, we found it, we crafted it, and now it's done. It just added a bit more to it, and it shows another part of both factions kind of coming together in a way to make something better.
I've watched enough Hallmark movies with my wife to know how all the love stories in the world should go. Okay, but this one to me was so intriguing, and what I'm hoping for, Michael, and I think we may get this, is that, I mean, this is a spoiler episode, so if you're here, again, I'm about to say something spoilerific, so I'm sorry about that. But when they go and they get captured at the end of their storyline, and we don't know whether or not they die, they get captured, they get away, whatever. I wanted more. I'm really hoping they built them up in the book, and we're going to get to see more of them, because I rarely remember a time when a goblin, much less a gnome, has been written, given so much lore. And Safi, to me, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys, Anduin, Sylvanas, every character in the book, Safi to me was the most intriguing. Like, literally her storyline, I want more of that. I want to know where she lives. I want to know what she's about, what she's doing. And the love story was great,
her address.
Too. Not necessarily.
So
I don't like gnomes.
I think the story that is... I think the story that is these two characters is a double-edged sword. It's also a way to embody and again, like Michael was saying, it's a way to bring into the fold how the Horde are actually trying to use the Azurite for their purposes. You know, she talks about how she would use it, and Anduin, you know, he talks about it a couple of different times. You know, it's a way to make this story fun and relatable because it gives you two characters to kind of attach yourself to. But at the same time, I think you could tell that story with two characters from one faction or the other. And I think the fact that you use a character from each faction also goes to show the issue that this is something that is bigger than any one faction. It affects everyone, you know, and this whole expansion arguably is a Horde versus Alliance. But I think there's been a lot of speculation, and I think this is another point of foreshadowing that once we get to the end of this expansion, there's going to be the realization that this problem is bigger than our little feud between the two factions, and we need to again reconvene and tackle whatever's in front of us.
Also, they kind of have to include gnomes somewhere, since, you know, the gnomes are not happy the fact they continually get overlooked for cinematics, and, you know, it's like, oh, we better put them in the books.
I mean they're getting closer, right? Because now we actually have a troll being shown probably have a big part in a cinematic. So I guess the gnomes is not too far away now. They're inching closer to look over that camera frame, whatever.
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay, now I also have something else that I want to lead into. Characters that were introduced in the book. One of my favorites in the book that was introduced is one that people have been wondering about for a long time, Kalia Menethil.
Yeah.
Arthas' sister. They gave her quite a bit. Go ahead, she's a dead corpse right now. Raised up. But if you want...
Spoilers!
Yeah, that's what this show is. Okay. I'm interested to see like what you guys thought about her kind of being reintroduced, the way that she was reintroduced. I mean, the way that she was reintroduced was pretty epic. Like, if you think about like that whole situation, like what's going on behind the scenes that nobody knew about, it's pretty crazy.
I just realized something that's quite interesting, and that is that yet again it's Sylvanas against an Arthas, but now they have switched places. The Arthas is now possibly the good guy who's living, and Sylvanas is the undead one ruling the undead people. So just an interesting little contrast right there.
It's an interesting narrative, because I feel like how this whole book was set up with kind of Anduin's goal to reunite members of the Alliance that had lost family kind of due to the Scourge, and trying to connect with members of the Forsaken. I thought that was a really interesting arc, actually, and it's something I'd never really thought about. And that, you know, the whole value of family, it's something that, you know, Anduin's kind of grown up with, and you know, his kind of, at the start he wasn't as close to his dad, but I mean, as time went by, that connection really, you know, it got pretty intense, and he's kind of now ruling that way. And there's a lot of questions to be asked of how naive he still is when it comes to situations like this. But I mean, he's always been about trying to, you know, find the best in people, and try and, you know, strive for peace. And you know, he finally probably realizing that's not going to be possible. And I think there's a kind of a quote in the quest line that as long as Sylvanas is, you know, helm of the Horde, there'll never be peace. And I think, you know, that's also interesting, because that's almost indicating that, you know, if Sylvanas is still going to be, you know, running the Horde, then this conflict is going to run and run.
Yeah, I just remember that I was thinking throughout the book as well, before we got to that realization, that I was already then thinking, as long as Sylvanas is the leader of the Horde, this will never happen. As long as Jen is around, I don't think that will happen. I think Jen can probably be brought around, maybe, but I mean, there is like some key characters in there that will never allow for this to happen.
One thing that I want to let the listeners know, if in case you haven't read the book and you're kind of listening to this to kind of get an idea of like what happened in the book, so that it kind of fleshes out your gameplay, what we are referencing is, in the book, Anduin discovers like a conclave of priests. Now this whole group of priests is not just Alliance priests. It's actually like Horde and
class
Alliance.
hall.
Yeah, pretty much. And he discovers that there's undead there too. And there's an archbishop that was once like such a big deal in his world, and he's an undead priest utilizing the light, and it kind of like transforms his mind to a certain way of thinking where it's not just as black and white as he once thought. Like, the light to him is all powerful, and it can do amazing things no matter who the wielder is, as long as they believe in it. So using that archbishop as kind of like a medium to talk with the Horde, they set up a meeting where some of the Forsaken can interact with their relatives that are in like Stormwind or anywhere within Alliance territory, and they set up this big meeting where they get to, they get to meet and talk to each other. And it's a crazy idea. Like, throughout the entire book, they're talking about how ridiculous the idea sounds at face value. Like, how would you respond to seeing your uncle with his jaw hanging off and rotting flesh dripping off the bones and things like that? And what it does is it helps set the tone for the Forsaken, and the fact that they have thoughts other than what should we do to help Sylvanas. Like, they have memories of their previous life, and they still love those that they once loved.
So let me ask you this then. Did you guys ever think throughout the reading, or when you were listening to the book, did you ever think of, in your personal life, if that would have happened to one of your family members or friends, would you have wanted to go to that meeting? Would you have gone down to that meeting and had, because you read it, and a lot of those people, you just, it's heartbreaking, because some of them even got there, and once they saw the gruesomeness of what a Forsaken looked like up close, they left. Even as much as they loved those people when they were in their human form, when they were in their undead form, you know, would you guys want to go to that meeting if that was something that was offered to you?
No. I feel like when people pass on, we have memories of them, and I feel like if I was a person in that situation, you would tarnish that memory by, like, whether you intend to or not. Like, just seeing it, if you were repulsed by it, then all of a sudden those memories that you once had, they are now tainted in a way, because you see like the thing and it made you sick when you saw it, and you just will now associate it with, this is the person I once had, this is what is now. And unless you are able to come to grips with that, then it's just not going to be the same, and it's going to tarnish your entire memory of them. I say leave it.
I think I would have went.
Yeah, I think that's a wow deep question as well.
But did it? I mean, did you guys think that
think
maybe, or just me?
I
I
actually
was
no,
thinking
I
that.
actually
I was thinking that.
I didn't
I,
like. I didn't
I
even think of it at all.
I didn't think of it at all either. But I think it really depends on who it was as well. Because
Sure.
I mean, if it was just thinking about it right now, if it was my granddad, I actually think I actually might have gone. But if it was someone else like my granddad on the other side of the family, then I probably wouldn't. I mean, it really depends on the person as well, right?
Yeah.
Who
I think it
is
was interesting because Anduin posed that same question to Gen,
Mhm.
and that was kind of like a really hard-hitting moment towards the end of the book because Gen had his son murdered in front of his eyes by Sylvanas, and he's been carrying a lot of hatred with him, and he finally gets put in this situation where he's like, what you would go back, wouldn't you, just to see your son one more time, no matter how he kind of is now. And he was like, actually, yeah. And I think we got to the stage in the book because obviously this meeting didn't go down too well with kind of regards to Kalia. There was some kind of unrest, and a few of the Forsaken tried to defect over to the Alliance side. Sylvanas saw this, and she had an agreement with Anduin to not attack or kill any member of the Alliance, and she didn't. She murders her own people, which is like, wow, to murder your enemy is something. To murder your own people as they flee unarmed, it was very cold.
And it wasn't even just the one deflecting; it was also the other ones who actually started returning to the Forsaken side just because they agreed to do this meeting. She offed them.
Not just that, but you could see a bit of her selfishness in there when she was like defending her actions. When they're like, but these ones were coming back to our side, and you could see like in her mind, like those ones saw me probably shoot down the others, and now if they bring that information back to the Undercity and start relaying that to the people, those with unrest already within them are just going to become even more unruly. And if there's one thing that I think we've learned about Sylvanas since she's gained this power, regardless of whether she wanted it or not, she is not content with losing it so easily. Like, now that she has the power corrupts even further. So she wants that power still, now that she has it. And anything that will jeopardize her having that power, she will snuff it out. It doesn't matter if it's her own people or not.
Well, I think right now, because she is the war chief, the path to her end goal is so much clearer. And like you said, that losing that power puts her plans in jeopardy. And so yeah, she's gonna do whatever it takes to get to where she wants to go.
And before we get back on that train, because we seem to constantly come back to Sylvanas, like it's all pretty much been Sylvanas recently, but I do want to go back to Kalia really quick, because in that whole debacle, she was struck down, and then she was actually brought back by the power of the light. So now this leads to many different possibilities. Like, are we going to eventually see by the end of this expansion, we see that the Alliance is retaking Lordaeron? Will Kalia come back to claim that throne as like a risen undead, pretty much? Like, what is going to happen here?
I think she'll take the metaphorical throne, and the throne that represents her people versus an actual physical location.
Okay, so you don't think that she's gonna like retake Lordaeron? And
I mean, it depends on whether or not they jade her, because I think if they jade her, because I think the a play on words here, but I think her being risen by the light is a foreshadowing of her being a bridge, so to speak, down the road between, bad versus good, Alliance versus Horde, whatever. I think for her to become jaded, what would need to happen to her for her to, take the physical location as well as the leadership of her people, the undead, and to be on the Horde side, she would have to be jaded in some capacity.
Oh, I don't think that she was going to do it. I don't think that she was going to do it in the sense of like transferring over to the Horde. I was thinking they would possibly transition that group of people, like the undead Lordaerons or any that might want to come over there, as almost like a third faction type deal, or like a side group, kind of like how before this expansion Culturas was kind of on its own, I would think that maybe they could go that route and just kind of have them there and maybe do like quests through the area where you interact with them, but not like you can be on that faction type deal.
Third faction confirmed.
Yes, you're welcome. Blizzard, pay me.
From an in-game point of view, I would love to see them down the line create a new like capital city for the Alliance, and that being in Lordaeron, where the Undercity used to be. I think that could be amazing, and I would love to see that.
Oh man, that's a lot of construction that they have to do. Have you seen that place recently?
So
clean up on aisle 10, 11, 12,
speaking
13,
of speaking of locations, what are your guys' thought on? Obviously, we don't know. I mean, I know most people's thoughts on Malfurion and Tyrande and those two characters. Most people don't like them. They get annoyed by them. Whatever. Historically, he is a huge mainstay on the Alliance side, and I actually don't have a problem with him. Kind of like what Ryan said about Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars. So I really don't have the issue that most people have with him. But is this going to be an opportunity for the Blizzard team to use this storyline to possibly, let's be real about Teldrassil, right? Like it looked horrible. Like it looked like it looked like just a massive, like a tree limb, right? And so is this going to be an opportunity for them to, at the end of this expansion or the lead up to the next one, for the Alliance to get that kind of rah-rah moment of just like, okay, and you speak about Lordaeron, and I agree, Michael. I think that that Callie is her story is one of the most interesting, aside from Sylvanas and what's going on with her, obviously. But with that being said, is this going to be an opportunity for them to rejuvenate and build a new Teldrassil, a new tree that's going to look amazing with the new engine, the new graphics, and all that stuff? Like, will they give Malfurion that option to just go, and then just bring up I can bring a new tree of life or whatever? Will that be an opportunity for this to happen?
But we can make a new world tree. The dragons don't have the power anymore. They can't bless it.
Well, I know what we're gonna do. I know what we're gonna do.
That way, you're right. But another, I don't know. Maybe there's a different way.
I know what we're gonna do. Like I've got like shitloads of those seed packets left over from Pandera at the farm. We're just gonna scatter those all over. We're gonna make a big ass farm.
Kick him, Marty.
Okay, I've got an idea. Tom, we can hire a whole bunch of hosen, okay, and get them to go over there and just be like farmer monkeys and just like start spreading, just try to grow.
Ryan can lead them. He has the education.
I do, but man, you guys are doing this all wrong. Just kick Tom, Marty. This is
my question
makes me angry.
My question is does the world tree act in a way where unless the roots are destroyed then it can't grow? Because if the roots aren't
the scientific explanation?
Yes.
Oh, you're gonna get him started. Here we go.
No, it cannot.
Okay.
The tree would need to be able to photosynthesize, and if you get rid of all the green matter, it's.
But what if I have a pail and I go over there and I spray it? We could get like an item on our hotbar and just kind of like spray it, whoosh, and then it starts to grow each time you do it. It could be a world quest. Rebuild the tree. Make the world tree great again.
Here's my one point, bringing it back to Malfurion. When are they going to stop making him the lore punching bag?
I agree.
When he wakes
100%.
up, he's sleeping the whole damn time.
Malfurion, and he got poked by Sourfang. Like really? Like
in the back? Like he threw a glaive at him and he falls down.
He's Malfurion. How is Sylvanas like besting him? You know what I mean? Like you're Malfurion. Yeah.
Sylvanas wasn't besting him. Sylvanas wasn't besting him.
Summon a hurricane.
He wasn't. He was beating her. He was absolutely winning that fight.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
But the thing, I don't know. I don't know why they're shitting on Malfurion and Tyrande in game as they are, because they are amazing lore characters. They have such a big part in Azeroth as a world, and then in game they're just portraying them as these weird old couple that's I hate it because I love these guys.
I do too. I love the characters. And when she like points that bow at Sourfang, which, by the way, the most anticlimactic thing is when you're in that quest line and Sourfang walks up and they're like going through this epic battle and he takes his sword, he's like, ugh, and it just like knocks him over, gets on his knees, like he's like that's not how you wanted this to go. And then she comes up and she comes over that little hill, or just like she's randomly there, and then she like points her bow at Sourfang and she's like, you got two options, and he's like, no elf, you've got two options. And it's just like, I don't know, this is kind of a weird standoff. But you're right, Marty, they write those characters,
And the
so
Horde think
weird.
they got screwed over. You know what I mean?
That's
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
That's true.
No, I think one of the, because I think the cinematics have been on point, be it the Warbringers or the CGI cinematic, and I think the book has been on point. The storytelling has overall been on point, except when you get to the in-game storytelling. I think the in-game storytelling has been bad. I think it has been a little bit too easily brought together or something. I don't know. It just feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect between all the awesomeness that we see everywhere else and then the in-game storytelling.
Okay, so first off, I don't care much for Malfurion. I know that he's a big lore character, okay, but I don't like Malfurion. Half the time he's sleeping.
He's
Okay,
a punk.
trying to commune with someone, not doing anything, waking up, and then having us do all the dirty work. Okay.
Where's Thrall then? Thrall's asleep too.
Oh, Thrall
Yeah,
is
it
who
is
knows
Thrall.
where. Thrall is with the ashes, doing whatever Thrall's doing with them, prepping, getting flowers and stuff. Anyway, I am more disappointed with what they're doing with Tyrande. Because I played Warcraft 3, and I remember her being, like, this badass character. Like,
She was.
She was badass. Like, she could fight. She could do all these things. We haven't seen her do anything outside of, like, the books. Like, in War Crimes, she was doing stuff. She was getting, like, heated up in the courtroom, ready to shoot people down if they didn't take her weapons. But
Anduin gave me this Hearthstone to Stormwind. Like, what, really?
When?
yeah, I remember her being so jaded against, like, just the Alliance in general, like in Warcraft 3. Like, she didn't want to reluctantly, and now she's just all, buddy, I got a Hearthstone to Stormwind, no big deal. Malfurion, he's always getting hurt, getting injured, getting captured, need the horn to raise him up. The Wisp did all the work in Warcraft 3 anyway.
Those wisps, man. Wow.
They're OP unless you actually try to use them in battle.
It really does feel like
You know what
the
I really
Alliance
liked about
needs-
that? It was like, you cannot go through this barrier, and my character walked right through the barrier.
Oh yeah, the story started after I went through the barrier already. I was like, oh, am I not supposed to be in here? Because he's like, quickly, champion, come through. And I'm like, oh, I'm already past
Well, I'm
it.
like, guys, I walked through. Just come on, like, come through. Like, it hurts you a little bit, but we'll heal up. Come on. Like, what is this?
I'm hoping the Alliance get kind of their like moment when they attacked Lordaeron, because it did feel a bit kind of weak with regards to Tyrande and Malfurion. And it's like, this is your home. Look, this tree's about to go, and you're obviously
You're just
Malfurion
leaving.
gets mortally wounded somehow, and Tyrande's just like, well, you know what? Let's just Hearthstone out of here. And I mean, to be honest, I can relate to that.
I
being a paladin.
didn't think she was a paladin. What the hell?
And it's just like, that feels a bit off. It feels like she wouldn't just be like, oh, okay, you just make sure Sylvanas doesn't do anything bad, and we're gonna Hearthstone out of here. It's like, that's probably the bit where I'm like, out of everything that's happening, I'm gonna say, like, that's the thing where I'm like, that's probably where I'm gonna say, whoa, that probably could have been done a bit better, executed a bit better. But
So
That's
it's
out
not the fact that we're talking about a world where at any time mages can make portals and port people to anywhere on the planet, and yet it takes the Alliance that long to get from one side of of the world to the other. We're not talking about that. That doesn't bother you.
I mean, I watched Game of Thrones, and in the recent season, that was a big
That's
problem.
true.
I had to forget about how quickly people could travel anymore, because it just got too annoying. So I feel like the Hearthstone thing was just a weird thing, though. It was just like,
Am I the
you
only
got-
one that thinks that the world tree burning was simply a way for Blizzard to get rid of those nasty trees?
I've
were,
heard
like,
of that. I've heard that
jutting
rumor
out
as
of
well.
the edge. Like, I was flying up there for one of the quests. Like, I was using the Griffin or whatever, and I was just like, wow, that tree looks horrible.
I'm sorry. I actually am planning on, before BFA launches, I'm gonna roll a night elf just to go and just to just get some nostalgia of the
It's
the
like
old
you're
tree.
traveling back to Classic whenever you just fly up that tree. It's like you're going back in time for a bit because of the edges that look like they haven't been upgraded since then.
It's true.
Bringing it a little bit back to Sylvanas, that's one thing I don't understand about the reason why they go for Teldrassil is so the Alliance doesn't have a port to ship this Azerite back to these kingdoms. But have you guys looked on a map?
I know exactly where you're going with this one.
It's all the way up in the north. The Azerite is all the way down in the south. I mean, those neutral goblins in Tanaris, I would be more worried about than the Alliance up north. Or is it just me?
It's also like what Dusty says about portals. Like,
why can't you
Yeah,
just
exactly.
transport it through portal?
No, Azerite can't be teleported, by the way.
okay,
So
See the small print.
I think that I've seen a lot of questions about on the forums and stuff about, well, why would Azerite be in these locations? I think that's kind of, again, that can be written out in that. Think about when you get an injury, you could get infected, and if Azeroth is infected, then obviously the Azerite could be found anywhere in the body. I mean, if it's down below, it could be surfacing anywhere, especially with the sword being in obviously just one location, but it could be coming out it could be seeping out
Through the
anywhere.
nose, through the
Right.
ears.
Right.
It's like
It
when you go
burns.
in for your knee that's hurting, and then you find out that your arm is messed up too, and then you have a cold in the back and a sinus infection. It's pretty much
Well.
Azeroth's insurance plan is crap.
When you're as old as some of us in this call, you
She's
just
got
try,
Obamacare.
you got all kind of. He's got Obamacare. Apparently.
Okay. Also, fun fact.
Moving on.
If we have to look a little bit on it as well, then the Legion has tried to burn down the World Tree on multiple occasions.
Yes.
Sylvanas is a byproduct of the Legion, and she's the one who succeeds. So did their plan finally work?
dun, dun, dun.
Good question.
But we eradicated the Legion, but it's still
going on.
Yep.
Dusty,
everything, the
Dusty,
fallout.
edit this part out when we get to posting
I will.
episode.
I will, Ryan. I will.
I do have a question about Sylvanas because
Okay, bring it.
when I was
Because
doing,
I have her whole Wikipedia page right here on paper.
Marty's
Oh,
got
goodness.
notes.
I mean,
What do you
why
want
don't
to know?
Instead of me asking, just read the Wikipedia. No.
Are those notes
Yeah.
in English? That's what I want to know.
My question is this: I know that undead cannot be corrupted by old gods, but
Well, they
no-
can, but they are generally more resistant.
Okay, so here's my thing.
She's not an old god, or she's not an undead though.
That's true. So every time I've looked at comments and people are like, "Oh, maybe she's corrupted by old gods," people like to use that like, "No, you can't do that," blah 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 blah. But if we look at when she tried to commit suicide off of Ice Crown, she fell onto Saronite, which is like old god blood. So I'm wondering if when that happened, is there a possibility that somehow like that old god blood got fused in with her own and then started flowing through her, and it's slowly been like taking more and more of her? And then also the reason why she's in the Horde is or at least the war chief, is because Vol'jin's gods told him that it was her that needed to do it. So are we witnessing like kind of behind the scenes? We know that this expansion is going to take the turn towards the old gods. Everybody knows that, like, it's going to go that way. So is this all kind of prefacing towards that, as in she might have a little bit of that inside of her, and then maybe Vol'jin, was he hearing whispers from the old gods in order to put somebody that they had control over, or at least some influence over, into a position of power where they could manipulate and they could control a certain aspect of the way that the world is influenced in order for their return?
So now again, we're going back to motivation, right? Like we're going back to, is it motivation from her, or now you're talking about, is she being manipulated by other outside? Again, I think as this Blizzard has, it's interesting what they're going to do this expansion, because they've got a they've got a storyline that's hot, right? Like, and what I mean by that is that it's very contested. There's people on all different sides of it. No matter what they do, they're going to be in trouble. That was pretty good, wasn't it? But seriously though, Michael, I think that are her actions, right? Are they her own, or are they not? And does this go all the way back to when Vol'jin named her war chief, kind of like what you said? Was there some whispering going on? And again, if that's the route they go, I don't know. It's going to be intriguing.
I feel like that would be.
I don't want that to be. I don't
It
want
would
that
be
to
the
be
long
predictable.
play. It's called the long
It would be
play.
predictable. Yes, it would
They're
be
going for-
predictable. Yes.
It would be predictable. I hope they go in an unpredictable way because this is a golden opportunity for them. We're now
I agree. I
to
agree.
a point
The
where there's no
unpredictable
longer...
way. It was the light that did it.
You might almost say that it was a Christy Golden opportunity.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for stopping by, everyone.
Nice having you guys.
I gotta agree with the chat. I don't think she's corrupted. I think this is her.
I think so, too.
I've seen.
I hope
how
so.
I've seen how she's been over the years, and it's been building up to this. And some people say like her burning the tree seems a bit out of character. I don't think it was. Like I feel like she has taken who she is to the next level, but I still don't feel like she's acting like a corrupted being. She still sees some sort of benefit to her, the Forsaken, and the Horde by her actions that she's still currently doing. Whereas kind of Garrosh was like, he was like exiling parts of the Horde, and that felt really strange. And his agenda was, I mean, he went a bit nuts, didn't he? But I can still see this, despite what Sylvanas is doing, and she's, yeah, like Anduin said, she's lost, but I don't think she's like this corrupted being lost. She's just doing things in a really terrible and questionable way.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, and what I can't remember who it was because sorry, I've watched like 1,000 reaction videos from people. Oh, and by the way, if you're a YouTuber and you make reaction videos, please react to things. Just don't sit there and pretend like, yeah, I don't know.
I don't like it where they're like really overreacting. Like it's like, why?
Yeah. But where were we going with this?
You're about to say something and you can't remember who said it, and now you can't remember what was said.
Now I can't remember
this
what was
is
said.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Brilliant.
any of you guys have done this, but I made a couple theories that are probably like not going to happen, but I made some theories that I thought would be kind of interesting, at least to me. As we've seen, like Blizzard tends to kind of repeat themselves sometimes, like with storylines and things like that. Like they tend to go.
I think the Horde disagrees with you right now.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they do. So like my main theory is possibly this, is that regardless of how we feel about it, Ryan kind of touched on this, or I think it was Dusty. Sometimes you're not meant to like every decision, and sometimes characters that you like, they die, and you just have to kind of deal with it. Guess what? That happens. So my main theory is that Blizzard is setting us up for her death. Now, a possibility. No, just let me finish, okay? Regardless of whether it's a popular opinion or not, or maybe they're not doing that, but I would like to think that maybe they're setting us up for her death, and they're trying to make people hate her, even though her fan base won't. They're trying to make people disagree with her as much as they can, and they may even try to make her go out in like a heroic way, like maybe one of her last moments. Think of like a Grom Hellscream type moment. Like maybe they might make her do that, but instead of like where Grom became a hero of like his faction, like once he did that, I don't see it happening that way. I think that she'll kind of go down as one of like those tragic figures that lost their way, and then instead of like death being like that,
It sounds
that
so
sweet
familiar.
thing. Yes, it does.
It sounds so familiar.
And can you name something
Illidan
that's not
anyone?
familiar? Illidan's still
Illidan
alive.
anyone?
Illidan's still alive.
Yeah, but he's still alive. But he's sort of sacrificed himself to be in that place in the sky, whatever. For
What have you given?
For eternity. Well, my artifact weapon.
Okay, that's okay. I don't think she'll die. I don't think they're setting her up to die. It doesn't feel like that, and it doesn't feel like she's being set up to be some sort of raid boss either. I still think she's gonna exist within the Horde, and that whole conflict of how she's acted is gonna cause unrest within the Horde. But I can't see her being
I think
exiled.
she will have to be exiled.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, the orcs won't go for this for a long while. The Tauren won't. I mean, a lot of people is also saying, where's all the druids and what? How can they participate in things like that?
Sure.
I don't. I think there's a lot of forces within the Horde that won't allow all of this to continue going on. I think she will be exiled or something.
Well,
That's
let me
my
say
theory.
that I don't think that she will die as war chief. I think she's going to be ousted as war chief, not in like a battle type way. I think it's just going to be kind of like the Horde as a whole comes together, and they oust her. Like, we're not going to raid Orgrimmar again or anything like that. But I think that
we're going to raid Undercity.
The invasion of the Undercity. No, the Alliance is taking care of that. I think it's simply going to be that they're going to get rid of her as war chief in whatever way that is. I don't know. I don't know the politics of Orgrimmar and how that.
But it
goes.
comes back to the Vol'jin. The Vol'jin's like, why have that whole prophecy of Vol'jin being like the Loa have told me to pick
Exactly.
you? I feel like that's got to be a bigger thing behind that. It's not just going to be.
The whispers.
I feel like it's got to be a bigger thing behind that of why she becomes war chief. There's got to be something that plays out in this expansion. For I'm hoping it's just not going to be like Vol'jin was made war chief and that whole impact of that was not really demonstrated. I feel like it's got to learn from that, and this has got to mean something. I feel like it's got to be all connected, and at the end of it, it's not, and we've kind of had a bit of a rehash. Then I think like a lot of people will sit here and go, you know what, that was pretty disappointing. But right now, this situation we've been placed in, it feels really excited, and I'm hoping, and I'm just got everything crossed that they take it in this direction where we're like, OMG, we're just like, wow, this has just set up a series of events that is pretty crazy, and we weren't actually expecting that. And maybe the old gods have something to do with it, but not as much maybe as we thought. And I don't know, I feel like there's got to be something else. I'm hoping.
Now, I was thinking about this, and I actually wrote it down too. Is the possibility of think Illidan with Zera, where she tried to turn him and he kind of rallied against it. Do you possibly see a scenario where something happens where she is, I don't want to use the word redeemed, but she is given like her physical form back to the way, maybe she's cleansed in a way, and I'm not saying that she's forgiven by people, but the Banshee Queen is no more, and Sylvanas Windrunner is once again Sylvanas Windrunner. Like, is that a possibility that might happen somehow?
We actually got back around to what I was forgetting
You're welcome.
earlier, and that is that someone actually said something similar to that, where, and now I forgot it again.
Oh my god.
It's what happens. It's what happens, guys. It's what happens.
It's not even early there, Marty. It's like
been,
5 o'clock at night.
As soon as Michael, what did you say? That she will become, yeah, there it is. He actually said that Sylvanas in her current state, Sylvanas being undead, Sylvanas not being alive, she cannot lead living beings because she simply doesn't contain those emotions,
the empathy,
the empathy and all that what is required, and that's actually something I thought was a really good point of his. So I actually, because I'm just sitting here right now and have been for a while, thinking what the hell can redeem in quotation marks Sylvanas. So we actually because I don't want another redemption story. I think we already had one in the last expansion, so I think it would be too cheap to go into another one. But what would actually make something like what she's done now? What could actually sort of redeem her so she will accept her as a character? And if something like that would happen where she became a living being again, maybe that could somehow be it. I don't know.
No matter what they do, though, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to satisfy everyone, and it's going to be so difficult because I don't remember a time in the history of WoW where the lore has been so talked about. Like we can go through years where people don't talk about anything but rotations and minning and maxing their characters, and then all of a sudden this happens, and it's just like it's unbelievable the response from these cinematics and animatics. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with how high quality this stuff is, and it just seems like this stuff is just the outside of game stuff is just so good. people are getting so much more invested now. And if anyone ever comes to me again and says that WoW's dying or WoW's, don't give me that. Don't give me that because at the end of the day,
WoW is not dying. It's a dead game.
No, it's a dead game. It's a dead game.
It's being revived as Forsaken.
I think that on the side of not wanting us to go too long, I think in closing, I would like to kind of toss this question out as kind of we wrap it up, because we could talk about this for all day, right? 5, 6, 7 hours, and still not touch on everything, because we still haven't talked about number one, Sourfang, and how he has made me love orcs and the horde and all of that above. I mean, I love what's going on with him. But I would like to
just
kind of
wondering.
toss it out
I'm
with
just
you guys.
I'm really wondering. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just wondering because obviously they had this cinematic in the ready and they had planned to launch it. But I'm wondering if they wanted if they were going to launch it a little bit later and then they saw the
Marty,
opera and were like,
conspiracy. No way.
Nope.
There's no way that happens. There's no way. They have planned this and thought this so through. Honestly, if I'm Blizzard right now, I know they're getting a lot of blowback from this, but I'm super stoked. Like, this is insane. The interaction they're getting. Why do we create media, guys? Is to create and invoke thought, to create and invoke dialogue. That's what they're doing, and they've done it to a grand scale.
Wait. We're doing what they want us to do. Quick, let's end the show.
That's why I couldn't get on board with the whole like bad writing kind of argument, because like you say, everyone has reacted to this. Everyone has an opinion, either if you agree or you don't. Everyone's talking about it in the community, and everyone has something to weigh in, and that's good. That's a good thing to have in a video game.
It's
and
so good for the game.
And yes, obviously in a real life situation, like, we're not gonna like accept what Sylvanas has done, but this is a game, and in game, it's a fantasy setting, and everyone has something to say about that as well. And it's fascinating, just like you say, Dusty. We've had years when the lore's gone by, and people have made little comments here and there, but right now everybody seems to be fired up. And I feel like after an expansion like Legion, where it was more unity against this big threat, and if you bring it back to the classic kind of Horde versus Alliance, you needed something to, no pun intended, ignite the passions of your faction again. And here we go. Now we're just like this. You've got people logging into the game now, going and sticking on war mode, heading to Dark Shore, and everyone's fighting again and brawling, and you just want to get in game and just like, I've changed my desktop today. It's all blue. It's Alliance. I'm like, yeah, come on, faction pride, and get out of here, Ryan.
I have one problem though with all of this. I have one big problem, and then once again everything is so focused on the Horde. Come on, when can we get like an Alliance-focused cinematic CGI?
It's coming. I think it's coming.
I think it's coming. I feel like
it has to, right? It has to.
I feel like with the whole Lordaeron, which it's coming up, and I feel like that we've got to get something from that there, and it's going to set up the whole balance of the expansion. I hope, because what I don't want is just all these actions to build up and then the expansion to launch and then that to kind of fizzle out. Like, I feel like this has got to be momentum. This has got to continue forward, and we
more
want
gasoline. Come on.
I want to see what like the leaders of the Alliance think towards Anduin for maybe being a bit naive. I want to see what the members of the Horde think towards Sylvanas. I want to be the flies on the walls for those conversations and how that's playing out.
One thing I can't wait to do is, and that will be next week. Next week we will talk about what happens in Lordaeron, because we'll play through the scenario on Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on what side of the ocean you're on. And I know what happens. I think Ryan knows what happens. Michael might have. You've seen as well, right? Yeah. So I'm looking forward to see you guys' reaction to what's going to happen.
I don't have a clue what happens, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, I have no clue either, and that kind of goes. And the last thing I want to say about all this,
Deathwing.
Is
yes.
the last thing I want to say about all this is that I cannot tell you how much more I've enjoyed this, not spoiling myself. Like, being able to experience this in real time, to me, this time has been such a joy, and being able to kind of live it as it's kind of being released, and knowing that Lordaeron's coming. We haven't even talked about Jaina, what's going on with her. There's so much good stuff. People talking about BFA, how can it live up to Legion? Legion was a great expansion. Talking about the, every other X-Pack, is not that great. I think honestly, and Ryan made a good point to me privately a couple of days ago or a week ago. I'm not sure when we had this conversation, but he was talking about the different directions they can go with BFA and how he hopes, they go a certain direction. And I am just so much, I'm awaiting the story of this expansion even more than I am just like, I can't wait to log in. And by the way, guys, it's literally like 2 weeks away. Like it's so cool.
See, I think you have the Warbringer episodes, right? One of them's Azara, one of them's Sylvanas, and the other one's Jaina, right? I think you have 3 different results or outcomes of those. I think your redemption story is Jaina. I think
she lifts the boat.
Finally getting rid of them story is Azara. Right? And then Sylvanas is kind of the one that's up in the air.
So I know everybody's said this. Everybody's like, "Oh, the Jaina cinematic is so good." I thought it was boring. It was good.
I was
it was
singing
cool,
that song at work all day long. I love that.
I was too. I was humming it.
I've watched it so many times.
I watched it again and I was like, oh, it's still boring. I mean, to me, I was way more invested in. Maybe I should just go home.
Wow.
No, I was way more into the Sylvanas one. I think my conclusion is that I'm way more into action movies than musicals.
All I
It's
know
at the very end. At the end of her thing, though, when she's like, "Beware of me," and she's just like full frontal staring at the center of your screen. I'm like, oh shit.
All I know is that the Blue
play,
Recluse,
man.
the Blue
Damn.
Recluse Twitch chat has never been so riled up.
I'm telling you,
Marty,
this
for
is
like saying
insane. This is
we got people
insane.
typing in all caps over here. Okay,
So
that's how you know it's aggressive.
Yeah,
Marty
she pulls a Yoda, man. She pulls a ship out of the depths, man.
So I have a question with the Sour Fang cinematic dropping like it did with no notice and just randomly like that. Are we gonna get more of that? And is that engine? Are they able to create stuff like that on a better budget and more quickly?
No,
but because here's the deal. I don't know. I think I disagree. I think we're gonna see more of that. And honestly, guys, I really hope that we do. Like, could you imagine? The way that the troll's face looked and the colors and the reflection of the lights, and like Ryan said, the sound of everything going on around them, like that engine. I want a movie. I want a TV show. I want something more of all that. I'm just curious to know the engine that's done in, and I really hope we can get more of that.
It's not an engine. It's proper CGI. So that's why
I don't know. They talked about the engine.
MS Paint, I think.
And it's paint. Yeah, they're painstakingly drawing every frame. No, I mean stuff like that takes. Even though we might see more of it, but it's still something that takes time to do. It's not something. It's not something you're like, oh, that Sylvanas cinematic we just dropped. People don't like it. People go crazy. Let's quickly make something that will make everybody happy again. That's not how it works. It will have these. It's something they need to plan a little bit further ahead. Just like
they may have a lot of them planned though. Maybe they
have animated shorts in the bank that they've already made.
Yeah,
I think so.
Totally. I agree with that. I'm sure that we'll see more of these.
I did want to bring something up really
BFA.
quick, and because we're on the Sour Fang video, Zappy Boy is in there, and some people have said, "Oh, too bad Zappy Boy gets pounded by Anduin." Selena, my girlfriend, did some research. Yeah, she did some research.
Guy.
She put up frame by frame, she's like, "This one has gray hair. Zappy Boy
different
has
color
red
hair."
hair." So
yeah, Zappy's still alive.
I was at work and I'm just like, what a nerd.
Now, Dusty and I were talking about this. We don't know who Zappy Boy is, correct?
No.
We know his name.
We know his name, yeah.
Yeah, Zappy Boy.
No.
What if it's Vol'jin's son?
Yeah, people have been saying that. It could be interesting.
I don't know.
Be...
maybe because his father did die.
I think he's just a personification of
the Horde.
The people that want to look up to a leader in the Horde that isn't Sylvanas, right? I think he represents a younger generation and he embodies the Horde that Sour Fang comes to realize that he wants to fight for. You know?
He's a millennial.
I could absolutely see the possibility where he is a not inconsequential character. He owns an iPhone 10 at the right place at the right time for that particular moment.
My big question is more along the lines was that character where the position Savvy Boy is in right now, was that always supposed to be that troll or because of the Sappy Boy memes and stuff that they changed that character to actually be this troll? That's my big question. Was this always planned, or was
the
this
memes happened afterwards, right? They
No,
happened afterwards.
obviously, yeah, the Sappy Boy, yeah, but it became a meme. So I'm just wondering if that character that is there, who is there, the troll, if that was always supposed to be, or if they had another version where it was just another character, another. I
Maybe
mean,
a
still,
Tauren.
yeah, maybe a Tauren, maybe someone else, but still someone being there doing the same thing. But then the Sappy Boy meme happened, and then they were like, we have to put in this troll,
That-
or if it was just a
that
happy
cinematic that cinematic would not have been what it was without that character being a troll, without him looking like he did, without him being very much of a difference in who Sourfang was. Sourfang is so masculine,
yeah.
so big, and then having
I
the
mean-
troll being so.
But
I don't know.
it could be a it could be a Tauren, it could be a
Sure,
Blood Elf,
sure,
it could be a lot
sure.
of other characters. My question is just
Yeah.
because of them, did they change it to be
So-
that
Good
particular
question.
troll?
It's
what
interesting
if their,
to think about.
What if
Because
their
of the
race
meme.
choices there was a way to foreshadow two of the factions within the Horde that
Correct.
arguably don't have a solidified leader at this moment,
Because they don't.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the trolls absolutely don't have one. Sourfang is arguably
He
their
is.
leader, but
He is the
Is-
leader.
is he
He is the
solidified
Orcs-
as a leader? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, so what if the troll being there was the way for them to bring the trolls back into the fold and say, okay, now we're going to unfold who their leader is. Maybe it's Zappy Boy,
So Mini Cake said in chat that the Zappy Boy's father's name is Hekazai. It's confirmed by the writers at Blizzard, so that kind of eliminates that that thought that we had that maybe Vol'jin was his father.
But if you translate that into Trollish,
Maybe,
and then
maybe.
into Tauren, and then back
Makes
into
sense.
Gutter Speak, and then
What a fun conversation though. This is so cool, so fun.
All right. I think we have reached the end point of this week's podcast. We're already like 1 hour and 20 minutes in, so we could go on for the double amount of time. I'm pretty sure, but I think we
Absolutely.
should probably end it there. So Ryan and Dusty, thank you guys so much for joining on this episode. Or maybe it's the other way around on your podcast.
Thanks for joining us on ours as well. Thank you.
So yeah, let's close it down in the good old Blue Recluse fashion.
Last orders! Last orders!
So remember to stay around, because after the show we have the newest Freshly report just ticking in right now, ready to go. What are your thoughts, you guys who are listening, who are watching, whatever you're doing? What are your thoughts about anything we've talked about on this episode? Or if you have your own questions, feel free to contact us. I still have the printed version of Sylvanas' Wikipedia page, so I know everything about her. Just ask away. Tom, how do people do that?
just before we get into that, I have a personal message from Frasley himself. He said, can you say that Frasley really wants Sylvanas to die after finishing the book? So there's one unhappy gnome with the leader of the Horde. So yes, my duty to say where you can find us. You can email the show at thebluereclusepodcast@gmail.com. Find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. What's that other one? Twitter? Yeah, that's a good one. At the Blue Recluse. You can join the conversation. This is probably gonna keep on going. This fire ain't gonna burn out anytime soon. We have a Discord over at the Blue Recluse.eu/Discord. We're on Patreon as well, patreon.com/the Blue Recluse. And you can find all that information and more on our website, thebluerecluse.eu or thebluerecluse.com. I'm being informed in my ear. And did we give the guys at the Blizz Umbrella a chance to say where we can find them?
No, let's just end the show here.
Okay, good.
Ryan, will you let the folks know who listen to this show where they can get in touch with us over at the Blizzard Umbrella?
Yeah, take everything Tom just said and make it Blizzard Umbrella. No, if you want to get a hold of us, guys, you can find us on our website, blizzardumbrella.com. You can find us on our podcast, obviously, Blizzard Umbrella, or you can get a hold of us on our Twitter account, which is @BlizzUmbrella, or our email, which is blizzardumbrella@gmail.com. Also, guys, if you want to find me and Marty, you can find us on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time over at TRC, where we talk all things raiding for the Raiders Confessional. Tomorrow, we will be interviewing the Ask Mr. Robot crew and all the cool things they have coming for BFA. So you can find us over there as well.
And also, this just in from the chat. They have never heard someone so wrong in terms of everything that Marty said. We are back to yelling in all caps.
My favorite one was at one point Marty said something and somebody just typed, "You're the worst."
That's amazing.
It's funny now. Sylvanas doesn't look so bad. Marty's
No,
like
exactly.
number one.
Marty is
Marty's
taking
the new Sylvanas. Marty's the new war chief.
He is.
I'm creating headlines.
Okay.
I think.
See you guys. Bye.
I think with those
Bye.
words,
Abort.
there's nothing else to say. But Freshly, take it away. Freshly, take it away.
Welcome to the Frasley Report, a short news report by me, Frasley, the Awesome Gnome, to deliver your World of Warcraft news. Horde troops are on the move. I was out on the field last week helping with the war efforts. I was hiding from the Horde that have been in war mode. Today, I am safely reporting from Renasus, where a peace rally is currently taking place. Members of the Alliance, as well as some pacifist Horde, have gathered to show solidarity for ending the fighting. There are protest signs and people holding hands in support. Tauren, undead, goblins, dwarves, gnomes, night elves, blood elves, Pandaren, Nightborn, void elves, you name it, they are here. Some of the signs say, "She will not divide us." Others are saying, "Not my war chief." And others say, "Save the Titan Azeroth." I will cut now to a speech by the goblin Wayne Strongjolt, the head of the peace campaign, who has backed the whole event through gold they have made thanks to their use of the auction house and the add-on trade skill master.
Inhabitants of Azeroth, as well as the Draenei who have come to our planet, we all share this Titan of Azeroth. Some wish to use what they can of the glorious planet we call home. Even the elementals around Silithus are trying to restore Azeroth from the wound of Sargeras' sword. Sylvanas, who many have followed because of her dedication to protecting the Horde, seems to be on a warpath to reap whatever benefits she can from Azeroth, which is a byproduct of hurting Azeroth. We have gathered here as one, children, friends, even some who have been enemies, to proclaim our love for Azeroth. We wish to set aside our weapons, because we just went through an awful and terrible war against the Legion. We do not want to start another one, while we are still recovering from the wreckage of the Legion. This past week, we saw the slaughter of many Night Elves in Astanar. We saw Horde and Alliance locked in a fight that has happened since Warcraft 1, which was released in 1994. Can we once and for all put down our weapons? Put aside our differences? Maybe the Alliance and Horde are not that different after all.
Oh, that was a wonderful speech by Gans. Oh, that speech has moved me. As much as I have shown my disdain for the Horde, this past week has made me rethink things. Oh, look! The famous band, the World Tree Family, are about to perform a song they have made.
We are all the same. Why do we fight each other now? Because we are all the same. Horde and Alliance are all the same. Let's put our weapons down now. We are all the same. Why do we fight each other now? We are all a part of Azeroth. We have no reason to fight each other. We are all the same. We are part of Azeroth. Why do we fight each other? Because we are all the same. Oh brother, oh sister, we are all part of the same family. Goblin, dwarf, undead, Tauren, Draenei. Did I say no? We are all the same. Why do we fight and we are all the same? This song seems to repeat itself, but we are all the same. We are all the same. do we fight? Why do we fight? We are all the same. We are all the same. Why do we fight? Why do we fight? We are all the same. Horde and alliance, gnomes, dwarves, undead, Karen, Pandaren, gnomes. Did I say gnomes? We are all the same. Horde and alliance, we are all the same. Why do we fight? Why do we fight? Why do we fight?
Reports are coming in. Flames have started to rise up. This is terrible. This one great tree is burning. Oh, I can hardly talk. This is horrible. People are panicking and running around. Mages have started making portals to Orgrimmar, Stormwind, Undercity, Ironforge, and to Dalaran. I'm about to take one of the portals to Dalaran. I sure hope this one doesn't go to the Dalaran crater. Everyone, I must now flee to get to safety. I fear the tree is lost. Why, oh why? I am sending you to Tosh Mifune at the Half Hill Report, who has been following this coverage of the peace rally for their next broadcast. Oh, this will forever change history.
Frasley? Frasley? Okay, listeners, it's not clear what's caused this tragedy, but please, if you're listening anywhere in the area of Darkshore, please just get to safety and try to help those who are doing the same. If you happen to see the Halfhill Report's correspondent, Eamon Wetbranch, please ask him to contact us as soon as he can. Oh God, this is just awful. I had such hopes that there was still a chance. It's hard to say what will happen next, but the Halfhill Report will monitor this story as it evolves, and we'll provide our listeners with any information we can on our next broadcast. Fraz, if you can hear this, please stay safe. This is Tosh Mifune for the Halfhill Report, signing off.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.